There's a line in the song, and the lyrics kind of go like this. I'm paraphrasing. The worst of us are one long, drawn-out confession. The best of us are geniuses of compression. So, think about it in these terms, right? A quantum leap is really, it's a compression. It's a compression of time, really, where you're dematerializing and rematerializing in space. Really, it's outside of time. Most of us are, making excuses and in these dramas and distracted and focused on stuff that doesn't really have anything to do with us, and arguing and running around in circles and basically wasting life energy, right? And then on your deathbed, it's like, why did I spend my life doing all that stuff, right? Everything's an excuse and there's blame and guilt, and that's the long drawn out confession. You want to think about your life and yourself in those terms, right? Am I more genius of compression, or I'm just knowing what I like and experiencing it and building on that? Or am I just sort of wallowing in drama and struggle? So, this clip recording is focused on the launch phase of a quantum leap. So, last time we were talking about some of the basic fundamental kinds of considerations, right? We talked about breathing, we talked about writing. You might have seen on my Facebook feed, I posted a link to a breathwork video. That guy's got tons of different breathwork videos, all kinds of different techniques. I've done breathwork sessions that were an hour and a half, and those are really wild. Those are really powerful. I mean, it's altered states of consciousness. It's interdimensional kind of stuff, but you don't really necessarily have to do that. But the breath really clears and aligns on multiple levels. It's a powerful thing. I mean, there's a reason why these ancient cultures have put a lot of focus on the breath, whether it's the Vedic, the Egyptian, the Tao, Buddha, whatever, right? It's always breath of life, kind of, is a fundamental, foundational consideration. So hopefully you're just more aware of your breath, maybe exploring a little bit the concept of breath work. I like to look at it like it's an accelerator, right? When you start to hone in on what you prefer, what you like, what's attractive to you, giving your breath some focus and attention and doing some active breathing is kind of like pressing the accelerator. It's going to accelerate you past the noise. It's going to accelerate you out of some of your dramas, and it's going to accelerate you out of some of the self-imposed limitations. I mean, limitations are always self-imposed, you'll start to realize. So now we talk about the launch phase, where we're going to take the pre-launch stuff, pre-launch considerations to another level. So, I'm going to assume you've been doing some writing. I'm going to assume you've been doing some breathing. And now we're going to start adding another dimension, which is recording. Okay, this is starting you down now a really kind of I'm going to say serious path where you're starting to have an amplified effect. What I suggest, what I tell people when I have, I've got lots of friends that are at various stages of working with this stuff, right? So everyone's kind of got to find what works for them, but you need to be experimenting and you need to be venturing beyond your comfort zone, let's say. So I think the easiest way universally, because most people are probably not that familiar, that used to doing stream of consciousness recording, kind of like I'm doing now, right? Just stream of consciousness, letting it flow, almost making it up as you're going along, but not really. But no notes, no practice and stuff, right? No do-overs. I'm not doing this on 3 or 4 takes. It's just this one take. But you take the writing that you're doing and you start to record it onto your voice memo app on your phone. You make it a recording. Maybe it's 4 or 5, 7, 8 minutes. And then you're going to start to listen to it. You're going to put it just like with the U Squared audiobook, right? You can have it on all the time while you're doing other things. Now you can have recordings of you talking to you all the time. And this is powerful on multiple levels. Because first of all, let's think about hypnosis. Let's think about the concept of the more you tell people something, the more they're going to believe it. Doesn't matter if it's true or not, right? There's been lots of experiments done. This is how media works. This is how government works, right? You have message, right? And everyone hears the same message over and over and over again. Maybe slightly different ways it's being expressed, maybe different sources, different outlets, or seemingly different sources, but repeatedly saying the same kinds of things over and over again, people start to believe it. Doesn't matter if it's true. There's been enough experiments done where they've told people at the end of the experiment, everything we told you is not even true. This is what's true. What we told you was actually contrary to what really happened or is false. And people just don't believe that. They'll be in denial of that. They'll believe what they've been told over and over again. The subconscious, which is really the superconscious, right? It's higher frequency than the lower rational ego monkey mind that we use in our day-to-day. The superconscious takes in information without a filter. The rational mind has all kinds of resistance and likes to argue and everything else, and it's a filter. It's got filtering capabilities. It questions things, but it's questioning them based on its beliefs and its patterns, and there's all kinds of distortion there. So it's always questioning from a perspective of distortion to some extent. But the superconscious, or what we're often calling the subconscious, doesn't have that filter. So that's the way hypnosis works, is it speaks to the subconscious and it programs. It does program. I mean, TV does this, right? If you're watching TV, you're watching a show, you're not realizing, same thing, especially in the news, but even all of your sitcoms and dramas and everything on the news is very finely tuned to program you. That's why it's called programming, because you're getting programmed, right? What you're seeing is one thing. What's coming through that is being accepted and absorbed by your subconscious, you're not noticing, you're not seeing. It's kind of invisible. It's hard. Let's just get trained. You really have to develop the eyes to see that kind of stuff. But you're getting programmed if you're watching TV. It doesn't matter. Oh, it's a documentary. Doesn't matter. If it's on TV, you're getting programmed. On some level, you're getting programmed. So be careful. But why this is relevant is because you're going to start programming yourself. So instead of having the TV programming you, you're going to deprogram yourself, right? That stuff's going to get disintegrated, and you're going to start to integrate for yourself all these energies, right? What you've been writing about. You're going to record it. You're going to listen to it in your own voice. Right? Consider your cellular structure has a consciousness. Cells have consciousness. Consciousness exists in like everything. It exists in water, for example. And you are mostly water, right? Like, so, what is that water programmed with? Is it structured? What's it programmed with? Where did it come from? Like, think about these things. You're going to start programming yourself with your own broadcast, your intentions, your energy, your voice. Consider that even in a verbal communication like this, the words are only part of it, right? We're told, body language is 90%. Yeah, okay, maybe. It's definitely a big piece. But there's other things. There's energy behind the words. There's as much energy, there's as much impact in the space in between the words. You notice there's times when I'm pausing. You'll notice there's rhythm. When you speak in rhythm and you have pauses at certain times, it enables things to land, and to land in different places, and to land in fragments that can get then reassembled in the subconscious, and they go right around the rational mind. The rational mind can't even doesn't even know what, just like when you watch TV. Just like when you watch TV, the rational mind's distracted with the characters and the content, but the energy behind the content is going right in. Okay? So, when you start doing that, you get good at it. You can start to program yourself. It doesn't matter at the beginning, just read what you wrote. You're gonna write things, record them, and listen to them. Then here's what's gonna happen. As you listen to them, you're gonna be like, oh, that's not bad. I should have added this. I should have said this a little different. And you're going to make another recording, and another recording, and another recording. And you're going to listen to it. You're going to listen to it. And you're going to improve on it. And you're going to improve. What are you doing? You're refining. You're refining. So if you think about the pre-launch phase, right, I like that analogy of a space shuttle launch, but you could also, which is I like as well, you could also look at it like in constructing a house. So the pre-launch phase is kind of like, securing the land, getting permits, getting the architect and getting the engineer together and the contractor together to get the drawings done, right? These kinds of considerations where it's like, well, how much land do we have? What kind of a house do we want? What can that look like? And you start to get the structural drawings, right? So the pre-launch phase is kind of like the structural phase. It's like, you're not talking about, what paint are we going to use in the second bathroom? You're not talking about that now. You're not talking about, what tile are we going to use in the kitchen? You're not talking about that now. You're talking about, where's the kitchen going to go? Right? That's really what you're focusing on. What kind of a kitchen is it going to be? How many garages are we going to have? Right? How many are we going to have? Not what color is the garage door going to be? That's later, right? And that's what happens. That's what you get into once you've got the basic structure and the basic template done. And so in the pre-launch phase where you're breathing and you're writing and you're doing these kinds of things that get you present, right? It's like every time you do that, you're at the table with the architect and the planner or whatever other professionals are involved, and you are organizing, designing, a little bit of brainstorming, right? But you're getting into creation mode, right? You can't really do much with an architect if you're on the phone with him while you're driving. You can have a message or two, but you have to sit down and look at things together and spend the time, right? So that's kind of the pre-launch phase. Once you're in this launch phase, right, that's now the shovels are going in the ground. They're starting, you're getting some permanence. Shovels are going in the ground, right? You're ordering the lumber, right? That's kind of what you're doing in the launch phase. So like that's what we're doing now. When we start recording and we start listening and then re-recording, we're amping up the broadcast. It's more precise and it's more empowered because it's being repeated. It's getting lots of focus. It's being refined. It's all these things. And if you're musically inclined at all, you might even want to put this to music, right? Add another dimension, add some music, add some intonation, right? That's why in pretty much every religious tribal culture ever, there's always some kind of singing, drumming, always, right? That's another dimension, right? The more you can be in alignment, you can be in harmony with all of the different energy bodies, the more you can be stacking, right? You're stacking. It's one thing to just be thinking about stuff. It's one thing to just be talking about stuff. But when your thoughts and your emotions and your physical actions and the sound, and when all of that, right, putting music to something, like drawing it, start drawing things, right? It's like the concept of a vision board. It's kind of like a vision board, but it's a multi-dimensional. This is a multi-dimensional, dynamic vision board. And I think the recording, the vocal aspect in the recording is so much more powerful than a vision board, because it's the kind of thing that you can have on all the time. You can be listening to yourself all the time. Like I have recordings that I've made that I put on at night. I have them on during the day, but I put them on at night and I fall asleep and I wake up when they're still playing. And I didn't really hear it, but my subconscious did, right? And when it's a consistent, coherent message, like how powerful is that? Believe me, it's really powerful. Like because this is, I started doing this, and I really first started doing this in 2012. And then I kind of did it sporadically on and off, over the next kind of like 8 to 10 years. Wish I did it more. Actually, no, I did it as much as I needed to do. But when the times when I would do it, I would look back and be like, wow. Like, like as an example, there was one time when I made a couple of videos, and it was text and it was images of myself, and it was to music, and I watched it a bunch of times, and I made two of them around the same time. And one of them was called Building a Champion. It was related to some work that I was doing with someone, but I was also coaching at the time, coaching minor hockey, and I was also playing soccer. And at that time, like in the next couple of years, my teams won 4 championships. Like, you don't usually win 4 championships in 3 years. Doesn't matter what you're doing, unless you're like a dynasty. My teams were not dynasties. They were not dynasties. So anyways, just like kind of one example, right? But where you make like the effort and the energy and the focus you put into these, it's a lot, because you're thinking and you're feeling and you're imagining and you're thinking and feeling and you're putting things together. It's powerful. So, like with my kids, when they want something, or I tell them, draw it, right? Imagine it and make it real on paper. Once you've done that, like, it's it's kind of a done deal. So drawing is great, recording, powerful, these kinds of things, because now you've had the contemplation, you've had the experience of getting still, you've had the experience of allowing what you prefer, what is sort of important to you, to come to the surface of your conscious awareness, and to record it on paper, and then now recording it in audio clips that you can listen to. And then you take the clips and you put them into a media player like VLC or KM player and make playlists, and you can have whatever you want. I've got about 10 different playlists, and each one, might have about 10 or 15 clips, and then within some of those folders there's another file with another whole bunch of clips, and another. I've got so many, right? So many. I'm making them all the time. Every time you make them, you're getting focused and you're refining and you're getting better and better at articulating what you like, what you prefer, and you're taking your attention off of the things that don't contribute anything to your life other than struggle, drama, whatever, right? You're taking your attention off of that stuff, and you're putting it on things that are in alignment with your joy and your well-being, right? Like, this is quantum in and of itself, right? Because you're just it's a complete shift of energy that you're making just in these seemingly small steps. But these are, this is like the small affecting the big in a big, big way. And so part of this launch phase is now that you've articulated, you're recording, you're listening, you're spending a lot more time focused on your own creation. Because if you are writing and then recording and then you're listening and you're imagining, I could improve on that, I could say this different, I could include this, I'm going to make another recording that talks more about this than more about that, more about the kind of job I want, or the kind of travel I want, or the kind of physical fitness that I want, or the kind of house that I want, or the kind of whatever it is. Right? You can make recordings for all of these things. You can make some recordings that include bits of all of them. You can make some that are very specific to just one or two of these. There's no limit. It's up to you. But look where your focus is now. Your focus is on what you prefer. Your focus is on your well-being, instead of, I'm going to put something on while I do the dishes, or I'm going to listen to something while I'm driving. You're listening to yourself. You're listening to who you're really listening to. Okay, so I saved this for this clip as opposed to talking about it in the first two. Because if you're still here, then this is going to make a lot of sense to you. There really is only now. There is no past, there's no future. That's just illusion. It's just part of this construct, but there really isn't. So, just assume that that's how it is. Right? Don't argue with it, just let it be. You can argue with it later if you want. But, in addition to that, there are infinite versions of you. There's not this version of you in continuity. The universe has a refresh rate. It's been calculated to be 1/3 the rotation of a proton. Okay, whatever that. It's billions of frames per second, right? Like a film strip, right? Like a video. A video is really what? It's a series of frames. And as long as it's 24 frames or more, the human eye sees continuity. But that's an illusion. And it's the same with you. It's the same with your reality. The whole thing is refreshing at a rate of billions of times per second. But there really is only now. There's only now. And so there are literally infinite versions of you. This incarnation, but also infinite versions of you in other incarnations, what you might call past lives. But there's no past, there's no future. So anyways, those other incarnations are what you would call past or future lives. It's your higher self spinning off a whole bunch of different incarnations. But let's just talk about this incarnation for now. There are infinite versions of this incarnation of you. This one right now with your name on it. You know you're changing every millisecond, nanosecond. You know there's millions of processes going on in the body with cellular division and regeneration and elimination and absorption, all this stuff, right? All these systems and processes. There's billions of things going on in every nanosecond. So you know you're changing all the time. Everything changes all the time. In the refresh rate, everything changes entirely. Everything. You and what you're perceiving, because there really is no out there. That's just perception, it's projection. So it's all refreshing. Everything is refreshing billions of times per second. But you look around, it's like, well, nothing really changed. No, everything changed, but it's changing in what appears to be duplication. So it looks really almost exactly like it did in the previous versions. Doesn't mean everything didn't change. There's just no apparent difference, but everything did change in its entirety. Now, why is this relevant? It's relevant because if you start changing vibrationally, there's going to be more change per refresh, per frame, more change per frame, more apparent change per frame, noticeable change per frame. So what does that mean? Well, that means there's going to be an acceleration. It's going to be like warping time. This is the compression. So if you want to still think in terms of time, which can make it easier, what you might have thought would take a year happens in 3 weeks. There you go, compression. What your rational mind would have thought, well, we would need a year if we wanted to do something like that. Okay, that's just based on what? Based on the rational mind's limited abilities, right? The rational mind is not structured or designed to be able to know how something will happen. It's not. It's not his job. It's not what it's there for. It's only there to interpret what is happening and what has happened. That's it. But how something will happen, it's not equipped to do that. But that's what we use it for. So, using completely the wrong tool. or taking something designed for one thing and trying to use it for something else, and it doesn't work, but we don't have any other answers, so we just keep doing it. Thinking, kind of sucks, but this is where we're at. Well, not anymore. It's not your job to figure out how something can happen. That's not your job. Your job is to figure out, how do you want to experience yourself, and what does that feel like, and what might that look like in general terms. There's the energetic structuring. There's the template. The higher mind understands templates. It works in terms of templates. The more you are imagining, recording on paper, or onto your voice memo app and listening, the more you are refining your templates and your preferences, right? So now you've got your energetic structurings, right? Your structural design, the structural work is getting done, the basement getting dug out, the support walls put in place. You start to get the trades coming in, like the carpenters, electricians, the plumbers, and installing, doing all the rough-ins. Then you start building the walls. And then you start thinking about, do we want tile? Do we want hardwood? What kind of windows do we want? These kinds of things, right? That's kind of where we're at now. And as you start making these more evolved, more, you're starting more progress and more expansion and more clarity and more precision in your recordings, there's more creativity and definition. You're defining more specifically what you like, what you prefer. And that's part of your broadcast. And that's what you're now consuming too. There's a loop, right? Instead of consuming from YouTube and from the television, it starts to be this closed loop. So it's coming from within, you're broadcasting it, it's reflecting back to you, you're hearing it again, and then it's creating this positive feedback loop, and you improve on it and you refine it. Now, getting back to what I was saying about there being only now. Because there are infinite versions of you, and everything is now, there is a version of you that has mastered, achieved, accomplished everything that you desire. Now, not necessarily things you think you want, not necessarily things you think you should do, but desire. Desire comes from the heart, right? It's like an impulse. It's where you have resonance. You know what you like. You know what feels good to you. And you're becoming more and more familiar with that. You're starting to live from that point of awareness. And so, when you're writing, or you get to that point where you're not even writing anymore, you're just going straight to recording your voice, right? That's what I don't write. I haven't been writing for a while now. I used to write a lot, but I just go straight to voice now. What you're doing is you are aligning yourself energetically with that version of you that has already achieved or accomplished or mastered whatever it is that you desire, right? Living the way you want to live has the living experience that you are imagining and you are desiring and you are writing about, talking about, recording. You're aligning with that. You're channeling that. That's what you're doing. You're channeling that. It's you, right? This is you helping you. This is not me. This is you helping you. When you are writing or when you're going straight to voice recording, you're getting focused, you're getting clear, you're getting open, you're curious on some level what's going to come. You're into the imagination, you're into your creativity, and that's your divinity, your creativity, right? We're creators. But most of us are living by definition, not by creation. Right? Definition, it just means you're getting moved around. You're just you're like a rat in a cage. That's living by definition. This is living by creation. This is your true nature. We're creator beings. When you get focused and you start writing things, right there, elevation of vibration, right? You've now brought your vibration into a more coherent state. You've raised your vibration. You're not as noisy. You're not as incoherent vibrationally, right? You're not scattered. You're not working on something here and thinking about something over there and interrupted something over there, and right? You're in alignment with who you are. You're in alignment with yourself. Your energy bodies are in alignment. And now you are aligning with a version of you that is a match largely to that state. And as you stay and you repeat that state, you materialize an out-picturing that's reflecting back to you a living reality that is complementary, that's a reflection of that state. So the things you're talking about, they're going to start to materialize. The things you're focusing on and imagining, they're going to start to take shape. This is where you start to have more synchronicity. You're going to start to have these little quantum leaps in the launch phase. A quantum leap really tends to be, from my experience, a series of quantum leaps, some of apparent bigger size than others, but it doesn't really work that way in the quantum. Each one's an important piece. It's kind of like a handful of change, right? A dime is smaller than a nickel. Doesn't mean a dime is worth less. Like, size doesn't really matter, right? They're all important. You could think about it like a puzzle piece. Everyone's individual, but every single piece is important, matters. If you're missing a couple of pieces, doesn't matter which pieces they are, the puzzle's not going to be complete. Doesn't matter if it's just one piece is, it's a piece of the car, or it's just blue because it's the water. Doesn't matter, you need them all. So I find a quantum leap can tend to be a series of like stepping stones where you get information to go here, you get information to look there, you get information to talk to someone, and all of a sudden you manifest something. And it's like, whoa, this is nice. And then from there, that's now it's like a bit of a plateau. It's like a bit of a landing, but that's also the jumping off point for the next step or level. And there might be, kind of like snakes and ladders, right? Sometimes you go up 2, sometimes you go up 5, sometimes you go up 20. Like, forget the snakes, but the ladders. So that's what starts to happen in the launch phase. Things start kind of falling into place. Things start lining up. For me, it was, in one example, I started to get information about something. And then I got more information about this. And then I got more of this. And then somebody else had not just information, but somebody else was actually experiencing that and started telling me about that experience. And then I went somewhere else and I started to see more information about this thing. And it just kept landing in my lap. So I'm paying attention to it. Next thing I know, there's a big move related to that. And then that becomes you're in a completely different reality related to that. And you can trace it back to things that you were focusing on. I was focusing on this and this and this. And this thing that kept popping up had these things as sort of core components. So it made this thing relevant. But I was also focused on this and on this. And then it turns out those were also components of this thing that I didn't even realize. But then it just kept appearing and appearing, and I kept just paying attention. It's like breadcrumbs. Pay attention, and things start lining up, and things start lining up. Things that are not relevant, things that are not germane to what you've been broadcasting are going to peel away. What's going to be left is things that are relevant and are germane to what you've been broadcasting. And it's going to start to be obvious. I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to go there. And then you go there and it's like, if you saw in the Matrix, follow the white rabbit. It's kind of what it becomes. And before you know it, you're just in you're in a different living reality. It's not that you lost stuff, but the stuff that wasn't related to what you were broadcasting, right? Those things you were writing about and talking about and listening to, they just kind of peel away. Not always in a gentle way, let's say, but usually, sometimes we're holding on to things we don't even realize. And they become like these really sensitive kind of things. We have them in denial, we don't want to go there, we don't want to talk about them, but you can't move forward with them. Some of those things are going to get kicked up, and there can be a little bit of discomfort, right? A little bit of, call it growing pains, right? Letting go of some stuff that's just not serving you, but you've been dragging it around for 20 years. So there's going to be a little bit of that. But in a lot of ways, the stuff that's just, not really serving you anymore, and that's just not a cooperative component to this broadcast that you've been refining and reiterating, stuff's going to peel away. Stuff's going to just kind of disintegrate as you integrate all these other aspects. Okay, and this is what starts to happen in the launch phase. So let's leave it there. Happy to take any questions in the comments and talk about the liftoff next time. Okay.